is finally here. Welcome to the Spray Pack documentary. Hope you guys enjoy.
I mean, I really don't get jiggy with the spray, you feel me? But I mean, it's new.
You talk about the Terps. I smell it. It smelled good. It smelled like bubble gum.
Whoever started it, I commend you because it made a whole lot of revenue.
People were made aware. It's when all these other brands started coming out of nowhere.
Brand owners that have talked about it, you know, it's a polarizing subject. I mean, people love it and people hate it.
I'm totally against spray packs.
Yeah.
It's the crowd from fucking 15 to 25.
What's more interesting is how it's so geographical. The East Coast loves it. New York started it.
Yeah, I've been seeing it. But like, this is the thing, they take some light dips and just spray it.
Nah, it's perfect. I want everything sprayed, bro.
You hear that? You get your weed, you get your Game Boy.
All that stuff it's flavor, but it's also poisonous, right?
And when it comes back down to even shit like that, we're aware that these processed foods aren't good for us, but we're still consuming them. What's gonna stop the consumer from not smoking spray if they find out it has cancer?
Spray, 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 spray.
You nigga you want everything sprayed this time? I got you, my heart.
Okay, so growing up, I consumed, like many of you guys watching, Doritos, Cheetos, Hot Cheetos, one of my favorite. Overall, really highly processed foods that today we're starting to see the effects of that. Obesity, the highest rate ever, chronic diseases, and really it's the food that is killing us. And in this documentary, and in my last 2 years pretty much researching this specific documentary and this specific topic, I see a ton of different parallels between the rise of overprocessed food and the impending future of cannabis with the spray pack epidemic. Because we're moving to this era now where people are artificially enhancing different flavors for cannabis, and we're gonna be going over what are terpenes and the different types that you will encounter in different products and different flower products, different cannabis products, how the spray pack trend caught on, and some of the prominent spray brands that made this mainstream, and then also the historical parallels between big tobacco, the processed food industry, and this trend in the emerging cannabis industry. Folks, this right here is the future of our weed. But this is a story about the processing, right? The junk foodification of this natural plant. I want to talk about, obviously, the sprayed terpenes, the added terpenes, the naturally occurring terpenes. I want to talk about flavor. I think this is honestly the most important piece of documentary that I've ever done when it comes to this industry. And I think that we all really need to take this very, very seriously. I grew up eating these, right? Hot Cheetos, love them. They were normalized for me. They were normalized as a kid, and that's why I still eat them from time to time now. Now think about this, right? For spray packs to be normalized for kids, they're gonna grow up with this. Now, once we see big corporations come into the fray, this is going to go wild. I've traveled all over the country for this specific story. It's finally here, and hopefully it's not too late and we can make a change here. But in my mind, I think that in a lot of ways, we've unfortunately seen this is going to happen no matter what. Now, whether or not we're educated as people, whether or not we are able to educate our kids, that is the question. Spray packs, for folks that aren't aware, these are artificial terpenes that are extracted from other types of plants, other types of fruits, and then there's different levels to them, right? There's really three. There's ones that are created in a lab, there's ones that are created from artificially extracting terpenes from like oranges, for example, and then reapplying them onto cannabis. But the problem is, guys, is that it's unnatural flavoring.
When like, the cigarette companies bought up the food companies and started, making all of these highly processed foods, right? Mm-hmm. That we all are surrounded by now. We all like since we were kids, right? Like babies. And this, I think, is the start of that for weed, right?
Like, what fucking weed naturally grows and smells like a marshmallow? Like,
it's a good point. It's a really good point.
So to put artificial anything on a plant
Like, you're taking the powers of the plant away, or, you know, you're dulling it down to put some other synthetic nonsense in it. Like, that's whack.
Okay, so at this point in the video, if you know, I want to go over so it's very clear for folks, you know, what exactly is a terpene. So if you are an expert in this field, feel free to skip ahead, but we're going to break down what terpenes are and their role in cannabis and how they are sourced. Okay, let's jump into it. So what are terpenes, right? So they're natural aromatic compounds that are found in cannabis and other plants that influence flavor and effects. Now, terpenes can be found in all different types of plants. There's about 30,000 different terpenes out there throughout nature. And there's about 200 to 300 that have been discovered in the cannabis plant. You know, and so terpenes have been used forever in different things like fragrance. Now, in terms of the different types of terpenes in this context, right? Well, let's go over it. So there's terpenes that are naturally occurring, like I said, in every plant, but there's also, you know, naturally occurring terpenes in cannabis when you grow it. And so naturally grown terpenes in cannabis is a good thing. Those are good. Now, what's starting to happen now is there's botanical and synthetic as well. Now, botanical terpenes have been extracted from, for example, an orange peel or from a piece of bark, right? Or another plant, and they've been extracted, and then those terpenes are then sprayed or infused onto cannabis flower, and we'll get into that whole, you know, we'll break everything down there here in a sec, so make sure to stick around. But really where it starts, right, and we'll get into more of this as well, is people taking distillate that's been extracted from a bunch of cannabis and then wanting to add some flavor into it for their vape, and so then they'll take botanical terpenes extracted from an orange peel, and that's really kind of the start of the use of extra outside botanical terpenes in the cannabis space ever, really. Now, I went over to my friends over at Terpene Warehouse to talk to the CEO, Caesar, about this overall phenomenon and explore, you know, what they do. And they create formulations for really big companies. So check this stuff out.
The isolate, right? The terpenes, they come from other places that they're extracted from, like oil peel or orange peels or bark or something like that, right? Natural terpenes that are in soy for plants. Then they come here, and then you guys do the formulating, right? And then, okay, so you guys would mix all this.
So basically, the same exact compounds that naturally occur in cannabis are naturally abundant in all plants around the world. So obviously, there's no THC in mint or oranges and whatnot, but all the aromatic chemicals that make up an orange or mint or tea leaves or bay leaves or any herb you can think of, any fruit flavor you can think of, those same chemicals are naturally occurring in cannabis, but sometimes at such small percents that you don't really notice it. But like, one of the best examples I always say is like, strawberry cough flower does not smell like strawberries, but if my strawberry cough blend did not smell and taste like strawberries, nobody would buy it. So we're catering to a market that's not the connoisseur that wants it to taste like flour right now. We have the people that want they want a sweet taste and they want the feeling, and that's what we provide.
What does the plus mean?
So the pluses are all of our original fruity flavors that were not very high in terpenes. Now we started developing our Intenza line, and these fruity flavors are all 80% plus terpenes. So our banana cream, our blueberry, our guava. What we were able to do is really create strong concentrated flavors, meaning people can actually use less of it while also maintaining the integrity of cannabis. There's terps in it.
Absolutely.
And then these are all of our strain-specific blends. These are all 100% or 95% terpenes.
Those are extracted from cannabis.
No, these are also botanical, but for these we were going after the actual weed taste with some artistic liberty, right? Like I said, strawberry cough, for example, if it didn't smell like strawberries, nobody would buy it.
So if you're an older smoker, you might be thinking that, so what is a spray pack, right? So typically, like I said, there's a lot of distillate, right, that, you know, for vapes that a lot of botanical terpenes are utilized in, right? That's the initial. But now what we've started to see is because competition has gone up, there's been a rise in people either spraying botanical terpenes or cannabis-derived terpenes that have been extracted from other cannabis plants. But they've taken that and they've now sprayed it onto cannabis flower to give it a more intense flavor, more intense feeling. Hi, Mazzy. How you doing, baby? And the products that led up to the spray era really started with the flavored carts. Now, this is the big problem with why we've seen the proliferation of spray packs with the younger generations. And there's also older, you know, talk to people in this documentary you'll see here in a little bit. We talk to people that are 50, 60 years old that actually enjoy spray packs themselves. But really, though, it's targeting the youth. But what happened with, like, I think the younger generation is, you know, people started to see flavored nicotine vapes, and then that led into flavored vapes, right? So botanically added terps to distillate. And I think that also leads into, as well, the flavored joints. Now we see the rise of things like the Jeter joint, a Jeter mini joint, right? Those have now been added with terpenes. And there's some really bad stuff about that, and we'll get into that here a little later on, so stick around.
Let me get your thoughts on this real quick. Could you take a smell of this? This is some Jeter. My
no,
my partner over here handed this to me.
Hey,
like that.
No offense to nobody's brand and whatever, but like, yo, that you know what? You know how smells bring you back?
Yeah.
That just brought me to a kiosk in the mall with all the fragrances. Why would I smoke that?
It's crazy.
It's like scary.
That
one's scary.
That didn't even make no sense, bro.
It's terrible.
I don't even know. Yeah. Anyway, it's too blurry, bro. But I didn't even see it. I don't want to blow their spot up, but
again, you know, no offense to nobody's brands and egos and whatever, but like, why?
Follow these simple instructions to infuse your product with Terps USA, spray terpenes, and bring new life to your product. Evenly spread your product across a flat surface. A plate big enough to fit your product or a clean table can be an excellent surface to use. Spray the Terps USA terpene spray onto your product. The goal is to evenly coat the top of your product without spraying too much in one area. After the first spray, turn product over and repeat the procedure. Having the same size plates or trays to mesh together and flip the product over can simplify this process. When finished spraying, place your product in an airtight container. Store your product in the airtight container for about 24 hours while the terpenes are infused into your product. We recommend keeping finished product in airtight containers whenever possible.
When was the first time you heard about spray packs?
There was the fake bubblegum shit.
Yeah,
I want to say like 16, 17, 18, around that.
Yeah.
What, like, not the Indiana bubblegum, the fake bubblegum. Where you just smell it and you're like, oh shit, it's Big League Chew, like, you know? And that shit was blatantly fake. They were ahead of their time.
So let me give you a little history about sprayed packs. And anybody who knows another barbershop argument, in 2017, we went at it with a brand called Bubblegum Cookies. They were selling cookies in the tuna can, but they were spraying it, and we went and told everybody, we're like, yo, this shit is sprayed with air freshener and fake terps. Do not smoke this. Do not smoke this. Do not smoke this. Everybody was smoking it. The whole 209 up north, all the festivals, people loved people. It was the whole tuna can wave. There was a big tuna can wave at the time. There was a big brand, bro. They were a big motherfucking brand. Like, they were selling thousands of tuna cans all over the fucking country. They were the first sprayed pack brand. But like I said, everything comes full surface, comes back. Trends come back in style. Like, boom, the sprayed packs came in. Then you got a bunch of sprayed brands now. And now there's consumers in New York. I watched your Instagram shit. Yo, they want sprayed pack.
Last time you mixed me up, terp and non, I don't want no non-terp. I want everything sprayed, bro.
You hear that? You want everything sprayed this time? I got you, my heart.
Yeah, bro, cause like that shit that's not sprayed, bro, shit's a waste of money, bro.
I got you, gang, for sure. I got you all spray this time.
The very first spray pack people have kind of recalled that was in the kind of more modern era was this bubblegum cookies, right? Bubblegum cookies was kind of this, there was from this brand, I can't remember the name of it. But really, like, right, we start to see this trend start to pop up, right? We start to see this really happen in a lot of the East Coast markets. Like I said, spray has been around. It's been around like for forever, but it didn't really hit mainstream until literally the last like 5 to 7 years ago, maybe. And really where it popped up, right, was it started out with a lot of these Delta 8 companies, right? People that were isolating different compounds and then spraying Delta 8 THC onto CBD flower. And then it kind of develops over time where people realize you need to add different, terpenes to create really any type of flavor you want, and you only have to grow one type of strain. Like I said, it was popular in areas where legalization in cannabis has been newer because those areas were prone to having lower education on cannabis. And we're talking about places like New York, right? That's really where it popped off initially because there's a large population center there. And there were some brands like, for example, Sprinkles, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And so because of the lower education, right? Because if you were to ask people on the West Coast right now, most people are saying, like, fuck no, we're not, spray pack, that sounds, no, it's not natural. Now, the popular areas that have had hype culture in cannabis, always looking for the best new thing, right? New York, Texas, Atlanta, Florida, right? These are where the hot spots are, and it's pretty interesting. We talked to our friend over at Flavor Farm Labs, Will, who's the owner. He runs a service that does application of these terpenes through his machine that he purchased called The Box. We'll talk about that right here in a sec. But
everywhere you go, it's everywhere in New York City. These guys are actually brilliant, genius marketers.
How many brands are there total, like big ones, you think?
The biggest brands are obviously, Sprinkle still has a presence, but not nearly as much as it was. Toasties, Terps, Fanta, Candy Cartel, Candies. From the customer side, I can't really speak on it because I'm not on the customer facing side, but from the brand owners that have talked about it, it's a polarizing subject. I mean, people love it and people hate it. But what's interesting, I think what's more interesting is how it's so geographical. The East Coast loves it. New York started it. It's gone crazy in New York. And then as you come out west, it's just like you can't even talk to anybody and even buy it. Like in California, Oregon, Washington, you can't give it away. In New York, you can't keep it on the shelf. So it's funny geographically on the divide. It's interesting. Yeah. And I'm not an expert. I don't do studies. I'm not a scientist, but it's an interesting topic for sure.
It's a super interesting topic. You say that. I mean, it's
these new markets, like Ohio. Let's take Ohio for instance. The infusion was not at all. It wasn't big there at all, and it went from New York to like Washington D.C. to Atlanta was like the new hub, and then Miami's starting to get into it. Chicago, you got a couple of big brands there now that are pumping it. St. Louis has a couple guys doing it, but it's still, like you said, it hasn't crossed that middle of the country line. Like Mississippi River seems to be kind of like the dividing point, but it's spreading from east to west, but it just hasn't crossed that middle section of the country yet.
Infused and non-infused flavors, because some people truly don't like spray. You know what I'm saying? And that shit is not like boom. Here, this is, bro. Come on, I got you. Here, this shit. Look, this is non-spray right here. Now bust this open and tell me what you think. But now, as far as the weed game goes, people want to feel like their $50 to $60 that they spent on that eighth or more, depending on where you live, they want to feel like it was worth it. So they want memorabilia with it. So that's why you see a brand even like this one, Candies R Us, is dope as fuck. Look, it comes with a Game Boy. You get your weed, you get your Game Boy, and it's just a sense of feeling like you got what you paid for. Like, you know what I'm saying? Now, as far as this specific brand, shout out to Candies R Us. They actually have terp and non-terp flavors. I prefer the non-terp flavors because I'm kind of getting over the spray wave. I like it still, don't get me wrong, I'm terp reviews, but I'd rather smoke this on a regular. If I'm gonna smoke all day, if I'm gonna smoke 30 times a day, I'd rather smoke some non-spray. I'll smoke probably spray.
Why aren't you?
Yeah, it's just that I honestly, bro, I'm kind of getting over like the extra flavoring. Some brands are just really trying to cover up bullshit weed with terps, And I'm a real connoisseur. I know what real good weed tastes like. I'm 30 years old, so like, you know, I've been around for the wave of having to smoke Reggie first, and then we got Haze, and then we got Sour, and then all these different cushions from California started coming around. You know what I'm saying? I was around for that, bro. I know what real good weed is, so I'm disappointed in a lot of brands. Like in the beginning of my terp review journey or whatever, I may have even rated some brands good that weren't good because I didn't really even know any better at the time. Until my palate started to expand and I started to at least like really try mad different brands, and like I got to see the difference between people who are actually lightly spraying it and people who are like heavily spraying bullshit. Heavily sprayed, to be honest with you, is like, yeah, it's like, it smells like a fucking vape in a bag. So now, like, good brands that I can say, like, that actually I might really terp high quality flower is a brand like Fanta. Shout out to Fanta, you know what I'm saying? And no, I'm not getting paid for this. And no, Fanta probably gave me money maybe 2 times for reviews. After that, I was just all genuine. If I like a brand, now I'm spending money. I'm not just asking for freebies all the fucking time. If I like it, now I'm going to invest my money because my clients want it because I said it was good. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to make sure that I supply the demand. Mm-hmm. You know, as far as Fanta goes, Fanta has been around maybe since the beginning of the spray wave. Shout out to Fanta. Yo, give me a second. Yo, what's up, fat boy?
How much you gonna charge? What you gonna do for him again?
Yo, gang, no, sorry to bother you, bro. I don't know if you see my vids. I'm Tato the Picasso. I be doing all the terp reviews and shit like that, right?
How
and
much
we
do
doing
you
a documentary? We doing a documentary on spray weed and non-spray weed.
What did you just buy? Did you buy any spray?
Yeah, dude.
That's sprayed?
Bahama Mama, yeah.
Okay, well,
make sure you do good.
How much do you love sprayed weed?
I mean, I love it. It's better than regular weed, to be honest. Weed.
You hear this, guys? He thinks it's better than regular weed.
How come?
Why do you think it's better than regular weed?
Because it get me higher.
So you think it gets you higher than regular weed?
Yes, it does.
All
right, that's one person saying that it's better than regular weed. So
let me ask you this then, like, what if it comes out that it's like really bad for you?
If it's bad for me,
yeah.
Like I ain't gonna lie.
Fuck it, we bowl.
Sometimes I ain't gonna lie. I have badges that be type bad, but I ain't gonna lie. But I keep copping. You feel me? You gotta try different shit every day. Niggas drop new shit. You feel me? You just gotta try whatever comes type shit.
So one of the biggest health and quality factors in flavored cannabis, right, is how the flavor was actually applied to the plant. And let's break down the process now. So there's different methods for infusing cannabis with terpenes, right? Botanical terpenes or terpenes that were not grown inside the plant. So there's the spray method. And so what this is really buds are sprayed with terpene solutions, you know, sometimes unevenly and excessively. And excessively is a big component to the health aspect here because if you just look up online, you type, are terpenes bad for you? Terpenes aren't bad for humans, but they can be really bad if they are in too high of concentrations, or they're heated up to a level where it actually deteriorates the terpene, and then that compound gets transformed into a really toxic terpene, something like benzene, for example. Benzene is cancerous for sure, it's been proven. And that's what happens when, you know, these highly volatile compounds like a terpene, which are highly volatile, they're heated up a little bit.
But as far as long-term study into toxicology of vaporized aromatic chemicals, no. But we do know that just like certain cannabinoids can convert to something else by being overheated for an extended period of time, same thing could happen with terpenes for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
But there's the spray method, right? So the spray method is people lay out buds on, you know, a tarp or wherever, and they spray it themselves. Now this is the most potentially dangerous way to add terpenes is because first of all, there's no regulations on the concentrations. There's none of that. So that's a huge potential problem.
Let's say a terpene interacts with, gets heated up, right? That terpene can deteriorate, right?
For sure.
And turn into like benzene, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
a perfect example that we've seen in the past. There was a flavor that had benzoic acid and benzaldehyde in presence of each other. And what happened is, not in the beginning, we tested it when it was made, but 2 years later, we go back and test it, and now benzene has formed.
And benzene
is a known carcinogen.
No, that's a really bad one,
right? But it's very important to constantly testing, and you know, this is something that should be adopted in all industries, not just this one, but this is the one with the most eyes on it.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, real quick, can we break down to like what are the different types of like there's botanical terpenes, right? And that's
botanical terpenes is a term that's used for any terpene blend or flavor blend that is high in terpenes that comes from plants that are not cannabis or hemp.
Yeah.
So
and they're from like orange peels,
lavender, herbs, grasses, bark from trees, you name it. They're extracted in different ways. You look at humulene, that's one of the most abundant terpenes in cannabis, and that's naturally just very abundant in hops. Hops is obviously a very close relative of cannabis and hemp.
Is there an equivalent to like a red dye 40? You know, like what's famous like very bad for you. And I know it's a smell. This is more smell and taste, so it's different than like look.
I mean, the most abundant way cannabis is consumed is through inhalation, right? I think that's fair to say. I mean, obviously, edibles in the beverage market on cannabis beverages are starting to come up, but it's mostly inhaled. So there's a difference with how your body processes something through inhalation versus ingestion. So it's not one for one, right? Do I know if there's a particular chemical? I mean, there's so many chemicals that are not safe to smoke, you know. Certain essential oils, certain chemicals need to be less pure in order for them to remain stable and not turn into something else.
And that's a lot of terpenes, right?
That's a lot of terpenes, yeah.
Because that's the concentration.
Humulene is the perfect example. Yeah. Back to that. Most humulene is found between 60 and 80%. You'll very rarely find it super pure. And I can't remember off the top of my head what it converts to. But the point is that it has to be at that dilution in order to stay stable as humulene.
Yeah.
So the question comes, what's the other 15 to 40%, right? So that's where testing is very important.
And what typically is the other 15?
I mean, depending on what it came from, it could be myrcene, pinene, and other aromatic compounds. But if it's synthetically derived, which is not very common on humulene, it's pretty cost effective to get it naturally. But we've never seen any bad chemicals when we've tested the humulene by itself.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it could happen.
That's a whole, right? Or what's your thoughts on that?
My thought, I mean, if we wanted to ask what's more consistent and controlled, it would be infusion.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're evenly distributing the terpenes across the flower. The problem is with spray, somebody's literally going in there and just going, and some spots might have way too much, and some spots might not have any at all. You know, so.
And also, don't those hydrocarbons get burnt off? That are
I mean, those machines are heating the hell out of the terpenes. So sure, conversion could happen, I think. But I
meant more so they're burning them off through the fats and lipids that are from those machines, right? I think what's bad is when people spray them on, they don't get those burned off, like they don't get, and then those hydrocarbons stay around, the ones that are still there.
Let me say that, like, it really depends on the blend.
Yeah.
Okay, like anything that's mostly terpenes or mostly compounds that naturally occur in cannabis, we don't need to burn anything off. What the problem is there are people out there that'll cut corners, and this is nothing against the people that have the machine. The people that have the machine have the right intention, you know what I mean? Even distribution of flavor and using the right products. But people that are doing it themselves that might go buy this machine, they might use tobacco flavoring where it's mostly PG and other compounds that shouldn't be there. And those, you need to burn something off, right? But if you're really just using terpenes and compounds that are naturally occurring, the machine doesn't have to, that's not the purpose of the machine, you know what I mean? The idea is that heavier fats, thinking like MCT or any other cutting agent, wouldn't vaporize and would just get stuck in the actual atomizer and could be cleaned out. So you're really only vaporizing the more volatile compounds. And terpenes are volatile aromatic compounds by definition.
Yeah. Okay. And we don't necessarily really have the full understanding of Like, I mean, do you know like the history of terp? Like, do we have long-term studies on like the
side effects?
Side effects, and it's kind of hard to track that.
I think that more of us in the terpene space are starting to look at toxicology now more than ever. I think that if we go back to 2015, 12, once terpenes were discovered, it was just kind of immediately accepted that this is what we're going to use. Don't look any further. It naturally happens in cannabis, and that's it. Smoking anything is not 100% safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our bodies are not meant to be inhaling smoke. Does that mean we're getting no medicinal benefit? No. It's just that you're taking a risk anytime you light a flame to something and inhale it. Right?
When were terpenes great? Do you know when terpenes were discovered, guys?
Terpenes for cannabis, we're talking probably fairly recent, in the last 20, 30 years. But terpenes in general have been used for thousands of years in the perfume industry. I mean, that's what perfumers use, is terpenes and other aromatic compounds. So, but as far as long-term study into toxicology of vaporized aromatic chemicals, no. But we do know that just like certain cannabinoids can convert to something else by being overheated for an extended period of time, same thing could happen with terpenes for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
So, and real quick, so like the pure, like for example, like the Jeters, right, that they're dipped in the terpenes, those must not be good for you, bro. Like to just smoke those out, I don't know.
Again, everything in moderation and in the right amount should be okay. You know what I mean? Some pre-roll brands out there are like oversaturating their products with flavor. I can't say that we co-sign on that. It's more important for us to know what they're actually putting into it. We always try to guide our clients as best as possible of how much they should be using and not to overdo it. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that the real cannabis connoisseur is not the one that's going to pick up Jeters. It's going to be the people that do this casually and are going to walk into a dispensary and they want something that tastes fruity. That's just how it is. Should there be some more oversight? Yeah, maybe. Definitely. I think so. Yeah, I think that a lot. It's not so much like the brands. We have the labs. We're testing for problematic compounds, you know. But again, like I said earlier, like if the lab's not testing for it, you don't know if it's there or not. It doesn't mean it's not there. Something bad could be there.
Yeah.
Right. It's buying products on the street. We had a customer in here one time, not a customer, he never became a customer, but simply because he wanted to buy flavoring for a particular price that was just impossible. And when we asked him where he was getting his flavors from, he was going to bulk apothecary and getting candle flavors and putting that into his vape pens.
Oh my God.
That's the type of thing that we don't want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where the vitamin E acetate shit can happen.
Forget about vitamin E acetate. We're talking phthalates and really harmful things that, I mean, these flavors are designed to stick around in a room for a long period of time after you put the candle out. Yeah. When you're sitting right there, or imagine taking that same exact flavor and now inhaling it right here on the spot. That's not okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I feel like that line gets blurred a little bit because they're kind of grouped all together, but there really is a clear defined line of what is good and what is bad.
Yeah, for sure. But if you were to test some of these flavors from a candle company, again, the testing lab is only testing for 20 to 40 terpenes. They're not testing for all the chemicals that are in that. So nobody will know.
Then there's the infusion machines, right? And the infusion machines, right, or the box, right? It's saturated buds with terpene-rich vapor for a more even flavor. So really, in these different boxes, right, these are better than just spraying raw terpenes on, because a lot of times what the infusion does is it burns off all the fats and lipids, and this is a key word right here, hydrocarbons that are in terpenes, right? So hydrocarbons stays in your lungs forever, and they never can dissipate, and they also cause cancer. So it's important that you get all of these hydrocarbons out. So when you're just spraying it onto flower yourself, first of all, one, the concentration might be too high, or you might apply too much, or it's not evenly applied, so there's too much here, not here. So that's really dangerous, right? Now, the infusion machines, the box, right, they do better because they're gonna be more even. Now, regardless, there still is potential long-term health effects. Like I said, we're not really sure, but that can happen.
The only thing really is just the hydrocarbons, right? That's what I get worried about.
And that's the whole point of having the machine. The machine burns, a lot of the hydrocarbons out, and that's part of the process. infused versus sprayed argument.
Yeah, 100%. And the spray packs are like, it's a much different thing than.
Yeah, the spray packs, they take all their pounds, throw them on a tarp, take a spray gun, spray bottle, paint mister, and just spray them. And then you're left with, all the solvents and carbons and hydrocarbons and everything that's in the solvents, or in the terps, the byproducts of the terps, the carrier of the flavors, you get all that. In the machine, while it's infused, all that burns out.
Yeah.
So
you really need the machines to make it at least safer, right, than it would be if you were to spray it.
Yeah, safer, and then also an infusion. If you spray a spray packs, you bust the nug open and, it smells just like regular flour. In the infused packs, which you can pull out of the bag right there and break one open, the flavor, is completely infused all the way through the flour.
Okay, so there are many brands that are capitalizing right now on the spray trend, and we can't necessarily lump them all together, but there's one you may have heard of, and that's Sprinkles. This is the one that they took flavored flour to the next level and kind of made it mainstream, right? They were like the brand to really pop off this trend, and they were obviously based in New York, and they went all over the country. I believe the owners are from Oakland, but they popped it off in New York.
We did a spray pack like shit that a clip went viral, got like 300,000 on TikTok.
Shit, that's more than $500,000 now.
Is it? It's over $500,000 now?
I do not fuck with sprayed weed. Hell no.
Nah, we're not. We don't fuck with
I want
that.
my weed to smell sprayed, but it ain't.
Yeah. Terps. So terps exist naturally in the shit, period. So then it's like terpenes are in every flower, fucking every fruit. That's why limonene, exists in weed, and the weed will have a citrusy smell. It's the same shit that's in a lemon.
There's a level of discipline with that.
Fuck sprayed.
Fuck spray, yeah, that's
that
how we
shit
feel
is
too.
garbage.
We definitely all talk
I'm
about that.
anti-spray.
We're
Yeah.
anti-spray.
Fuck that
It's nice
sprinkle
to,
shit.
It's nice
Fuck
to hear
sprinkles.
somebody who's reputable out here saying that with us. You know what I mean?
I'm anti-spray.
Because anti-spray, fuck that shit.
You already know, it's the voice of the trap, man. Right now we at Gasly. We in Dykeman, Uptown Manhattan, alright? You see why they call them Gasly. They have every single drop. You see, you got Terps. Shout out to Terps. Got Toasties. This is the Hoodie Loops right here. This was the A Boogie drop. They got another A Boogie drop coming in a few days. You know what I'm saying? It's the Candy Loops under the same branch, Toasties.
But really what Sprinkles did is they pretty much had this thing that they would do is they would say, hey, we got a new flavor coming out every single week or every single day. I think there was at one point they were doing it every single day. Now I talked to people in New York and a lot of people weren't even aware that they were adding terpenes to it. Sprinkles wasn't necessary, and this is the whole thing I want to get to the crux of this documentary, is that I think it's important for folks to be aware of the potential health effects long-term that can happen from consuming this terpene flour, right? These terpene-enriched flour or spray packs, right? Because I think everyone has the right to do whatever they want with their own body, but it's important that everyone has the education and are informed on what they're actually consuming so that they can make that decision, accurately. And because a lot of people that I talked to in New York when I went to New York, right, they said this.
I have a question.
That ass. Yeah, Sprinkles. Yo, Sprinkles definitely. Sprinkles definitely was a big.
Did you know that Sprinkles was sprayed though?
Yeah, definitely. We was we didn't know. No, at first we didn't know that.
You see?
We just thought
that's how that's I've been saying that a lot throughout this documentary too since he's been with me. That no one knew Sprinkles was sprayed. They took over the way they did without I guess withholding information is not technically a lie, but they withheld information until it just became public.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but Sprinkles.
They just wanted their weed to taste like that, so they were trying to figure out how can we get our weed like that though.
But they couldn't
I've been
figure it
selling
out.
weed for 20 years. How can I get my weed like that?
It's sprayed.
They figured out it's sprayed. They said, oh, it's sprayed.
Now it's consciously. Before we didn't know it was sprayed. It was like Sprinkles. When Sprinkles first came out, Sprinkles no one was really aware of what terp weed was. No one was out here like, oh yeah, I know I'm smoking spray. No one knew what the fuck that was. They just thought they were smoking the best of the best because that's what Sprinkles was promoting. the word gets out eventually. You know what I'm saying? The secret is not gonna be kept too long when there's like a chain of command, because somebody out of that chain probably gets out of position, and now you're angry. You start spilling the beans about everything because you angry that you're not part of the circle no more. So that's just how shit go, bro. The Sprinkles was the first ones to start to spray shit, and I might not be pro Sprinkles, but I gotta give them the credit where it's due. Shout out to Sprinkles, unfortunately, but y'all started this shit.
But yeah, Sprinkles made a ton of money. They blew up really quick by doing this new flavor every single day. But why did the weed look always the same? And that's because really what they were doing, right, is they were buying a bunch of these AAA LCGs, right, good quality weed, and then they were adding in their own flavors. And you're getting flavors like, you know, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. You're getting like blueberry pancakes, like things that actually like, and when you hit the weed, it tastes like blueberry pancakes. And because New York, you know, wasn't, maybe, you know, the East Coast markets aren't as educated on spray packs, right? Well, the consumer, they bought it.
I already had a relationship with Fatboy S2C because of that. You know, like he had seen me in Times Square before. Oh, that's crazy. He had already seen me in Times Square before because of that. So we used to talk sometimes. I reached out to Fatboy, and he didn't charge me $1, bro. He was like, yeah, bro, I'll do this promo video with you. He said, I seen your vids. I love what you're doing. And he gave me that push. Like, he didn't have to do that. There's a million niggas he know before me.
I mean, I really don't get jiggy with the spray. You feel me? But, I mean, it's new. It's very, you know, creative that they're doing now. So whoever started it, I commend you because it made a whole lot of revenue, which was great. But at the end of the day, I like, you know, smoking regular because that's how I was brought up. You know, Sour Diesel, Granddaddy Perp, Kush, you know what I'm saying? Shit like that. So at the end of the day, I mean, the spray shit is cool, but I don't prefer it for myself or my body. Because I smoke, don't get me wrong, I have smoked it before, but I prefer non-spray. But shout out to the spray community, whoever out there, you know, shout out to y'all. Peace, y'all made a lot of money. Give me some.
What do you think about, like, it's probably not the healthiest thing, but what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's not the healthiest thing because I read some knowledge on it. It's not the healthiest thing, but I don't see it killing people. We didn't see no deaths or no tolls of death that it killed people. So yeah, like, you know, a lot of things, stress kills people. So we can't put spray. It didn't kill nobody. So it's strong. It's very strong and it's very, you know, thick to the, you know, brain and shit like that, to the system. But no, it's not healthy because weed comes from the earth. It comes from the earth. They putting all this shit in it, spraying it, and no, we need it from the earth. We need to go back to the mecca of, you know, the Sour Diesel when it was grown, like for real, no spray, no nothing. Like no preservative, just straight weed, and it gets you to the moon, you know? Facts. Yeah, appreciate you, bro. Thank you, bro. You know, because I hopped in the cannabis game June 5th, 2020, and I never thought I could, you know, plateau like I did. I started my own brand called Lung Smacker. Now I have a brand called Punkies. So it was just a milestone for me because I came from when trapping was illegal, when you couldn't sell weed, you had to, you know, do different things. But now, in a sense, it's, you know, it's legal basically. You gotta have the right licensing, right things going on, and it's legal. So it's dope. I love. They made these young niggas made the trap exciting. They made it exciting with the packaging, with, you know, to be creative, putting keychains, putting dog food, and everything. You know, they did that. Yeah, next is gonna come with Cartier watches. Pop's gonna have it come with Cartier watches and Richard Millie's and stuff. So it's fire. It's fire, bro. It's fire. They fucked the game up. Oh, let's do a collabo, man. And I commend your work. You keep going. God bless you in your whole career, everything you're doing. You know, God bless.
So we've seen the same trends before, right? And this happened with processed food companies and big tobacco. Like I mentioned earlier, flavored jewel pods, which led to flavored vapes in general, right? There's menthol cigarettes, right? They use flavor to mask the harshness, attracting new smokers similar to terpene-infused weed.
But at the end of the day, this is opening up a whole new market. So women that don't like the flavor of weed, that like the flavor of strawberry milkshake, or vice versa. Young kids that grow up vaping, love the flavors. You're bringing more people into the market. You bring more people into the market. You're selling more flower. Price goes up. Production goes up. So they're looking at it from a perspective, from a personal view, but from a business perspective, they should be loving what we're doing.
Absolutely, that's a really good point.
I mean, because you're expanding the market.
Yeah, you're 100%.
You're bringing people that would never smoke into the market.
Exactly, and that's what I think the vaping did as well with like the flavor vapes.
So what happened really in the 80s is big tobacco was starting to kind of come down from their peak of popularity and success and money being made and all that, because people were starting to catch on, hey, cigarettes are actually really bad for you. And so what happened was big tobacco wanted to diversify. And so 2 out of the 3 biggest food manufacturers in America at the time were purchased by different big tobacco companies.
Big tobacco took the billions of profits they made from generations of addicted smokers and invested in something more family-friendly. Something that could have a big effect on our future. Something that we consume every day. The food we eat. In 1985, tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds bought Nabisco Foods. Tobacco pioneer Philip Morris bought General Foods, and 3 years later, Kraft Foods, making them the largest food producer in North America. And leaving the business of food in the capable hands of the same corporations who helped addict us to tobacco. Using the same tactics they used to promote tobacco, food companies set about peddling the entire planet a diet of processed goods, loaded with chemicals and additives, masquerading as food. This new machine operates with specific targets in mind, like addicting consumers, without them knowing it.
To understand this parallels, we got to go back a little bit in American history and talk about, so during the 1980s and 1990s, tobacco giants such as Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds acquired major food companies including Kraft, Nabisco, and General Foods. So they were trying to do this because they wanted to diversify their portfolio, because people were starting to catch on, hey, cigarettes are not healthy for you. And so these acquisitions enabled the tobacco companies to dominate the food market. And they had this stockpile of different scientists, right, that wanted to make cigarettes extremely addictive, right? Because if you ever, I'm sure many of you have heard that a cigarette from Marlboro has 1,000+ ingredients in it, right? All different types of nasty chemicals. And then, regular tobacco leaves that are just grown naturally are actually, there's no additives to it. But a Marlboro cigarette, right, it's got tons and tons and tons of these chemicals added to it to make it extremely addictive, hyper palatable, right? They took all of these scientists that helped create, these really addictive cigarettes, and they turned them onto the food supply. And so these scientists now were saying, hey, how can we make food as addictive as possible? How can we make it extremely addictive and obviously extremely bad for you? That was one of the products of it. So they introduced products that were engineered to maximize sensory pleasure, right? So they would combine things like sugar, fat, salt in these precise ratios, and they created hyper palatable foods that would trigger intense cravings and overconsumption. And so the study that was published in Addiction found that during the years of tobacco companies controlling these food brands, their products were significantly more likely to meet the criteria for hyperpalatability than comparable items from non-tobacco owned companies. And this legacy continues to influence America's dietary habits today, contributing to a massive rise in obesity and all these other health complications that come with it. And so the terpene-infused cannabis, it operates as a similar principle and potential future for cannabis if we are not careful as consumers and as a community. Just as hyper-palatable foods overshadow traditional nutrient-dense meals, terpene-infused cannabis risks overshadowing the natural complexity of the therapeutic value of unaltered natural cannabis strains. And that's really the heart of this overall issue. We've seen this happen before. Are we going to let this happen with the cannabis industry is the question. And honestly, good chance that that's probably going to happen.
Humans, we're in this era where we chase flavor.
Chase flavor. I mean, when I was a kid, there was, one flavor of everything. M&M's had 2 flavors, a plain and a peanut. Starburst had 1. Now you go into a store now, and there's 10 flavors of every candy. You go to the soda section, the soft drink section. I mean, it's just nothing but flavors as far as you can see down the aisles. That didn't exist 25 years ago.
But isn't that, but in a lot of ways too, like, what do you call it? Like, all that stuff it's flavor, but it's also poisonous, right?
Yeah, I mean,
but we all have our rights to choose.
We have rights to choose.
Yeah.
I would argue that sugar is probably the most dangerous thing that you consume, more than any drug, probably. I've read studies on it. So, I mean, if you're comparing what we're doing to what these large food companies are doing, I mean, we get death threats, we get all kinds of hate mail.
Yeah.
I wonder if these large companies that are poisoning our food supply are getting the same. I don't know.
No, they're not. If I had to guess, because it's been societally normalized.
Accepted, yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest problems with flavored cannabis or terpene-infused cannabis for consumers is that we truly don't know the long-term effects, right? So whether the terpenes were applied in a safe way, how the terpenes were produced and sourced, these are still the biggest factors in the safety of spray packs, right? Because this is unregulated. A lot of the market in the world and in America, right? It's unregulated street-level production. Some terpene sprays could contain harmful additives and unknown chemicals because people can just go buy this anywhere. I mean, you can buy it online, right? I guarantee you, if you might see on YouTube, right to the left or right of the screen, you might see an ad for people selling, terpenes. And the fact is, there's just no regulation on this. And like I said, really, like when you start to heat up different terpenes, they get corrupted into really nasty substances that for sure will give you cancer. And so the unknown long-term effects, right, is, the research on inhaling highly concentrated, artificially added terpenes is still lacking. Like, no one can tell me that that's not. We know throughout history, right, that terpenes aren't necessarily they're not harmful for the human body to consume, but they can be extremely harmful if it's at high concentrations. Like essential oils, like you don't want to be smoking essential oils. And so to trust everyone to make sure that they apply the right amount, I mean, it's really impossible to tell unless there's any sort of regulations on it. And for a lot of folks that, maybe have been smoking cannabis for years and years and years, we have, we're used to, really great terpenes, or, some of us are, great, naturally produced terpene profiles from like, a strain like the Z or the Skittles, right? But a lot of people aren't privy to that. They don't know what naturally, And so for folks like myself, like when I smell like a Jeter joint, right? You open up the container for the little Jeter minis. You smell it and it just smells like straight chemicals. Let me get your thoughts on this real quick. Could you take a smell of this? This is some Jeter. My partner over here handed this to me.
Hey,
like that.
No offense to nobody's brand and whatever, but like, yo, that you know what? You know how smells bring you back?
Yeah.
That just brought me to a kiosk in the mall with all the fragrances. Why would I smoke that?
It's crazy.
It's like scary.
That
one's scary.
That didn't even make no sense, bro.
Terrible situation.
Yeah, anyway, it's too blurry, bro, but I didn't even see it. I don't want to blow their spot up, but...
Again, no offense to nobody's brands and egos and whatever, but like... Why?
I mean, they have so much shit in those pre-rolls. I mean, they have sauce, they have diamonds, they have, THCA, they got terpenes. I mean, their formula for what they've done, like, revolutionized the pre-roll. But like you said, there's tons of shit in it. Their THC levels in these things are what, like 60%, 50%? Like with all the shit they add into it, it's insane. But people love them because
they've been just kind of quiet about it. I think they've just been really quiet about it, and they never got grouped into this new era that's coming about now, which is kind of the era that I think you're kind of adjacent to a certain degree, but the sprinkles era, the New York spray packs, right? Let's be real. It's really concentrated from there. More so though, right? It also is going to introduce a massive amount of new smokers, right? Which is not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to cannabis if it's used right. But I mean, check this out.
But at the end of the day, this is opening up a whole new market. So women that don't like the flavor of weed, that like the flavor of strawberry milkshake, or or vice versa. Young kids that vape, grow up vaping, love the flavors. You're bringing more people into the market. You bring more people into the market. You're selling more flower. Price goes up. Production goes up. So they're looking at it from a perspective, from a personal view, but from a business perspective, they should be loving what we're doing.
Absolutely, that's a really good point.
I mean, because you're expanding the market.
Yeah, you're 100%.
You're bringing people that would never smoke into the market.
Exactly, and that's what I think the vaping did as well with like the flavor vapes.
And like I said, so inhaling concentrated terpenes or combusting them can create harmful byproducts that have not been researched fully. But we do know, like I said, once you heat up a terpene, first of all, terpenes in general are very volatile compounds. And if you heat them up, they then will transform or produce different things like benzene or toluene. They cause cancer, 100%.
We always try to guide our clients as best as possible of how much they should be using and not to overdo it. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that the real cannabis connoisseur is not the one that's going to pick up Jeters. It's going to be the people that do this casually and are going to walk into a dispensary and they want something that tastes fruity. That's just how it is.
100%.
Yeah.
Last question. Flavor seems like flavor is the key to the consumer. It's the key to create a market. I mean, and so you're starting now to see some of these people, younger people, older people as well. It's not just a younger person thing. There's plenty. Like I was in New York, I interviewed people in New York. They're 60, 70. I'll pick the terp weed over the regular weed. Is flavor going to dominate every single time? Unless,
It might be a trend, I mean, I think it could be a trend, but just like the food industry, we all went into these crazy high sugar cereals and all this candy and whatnot, and then in the last 15, 20 years, we've become more health conscious, right? Then there was that weird period where all of a sudden the greasiest cheeseburger was making a comeback. I think it's all relative, I think it's going to come and go, There's going to be people that start to become more conscious of what they're putting into their bodies. Should there be some more oversight? Yeah, maybe. Definitely. I think so. Yeah, I think that a lot. It's not so much like the brands. We have the labs. We're testing for problematic compounds, But again, like I said earlier, if the lab's not testing for it, you don't know if it's there or not. It doesn't mean it's not there. Something bad could be there.
So the biggest problem with flavored cannabis it poses to the industry is the threat of corporate takeover. Right, so flavored cannabis makes it easier for big corporations to take over because spray packs are a good way to control consistency on a massive scale. For example, if weed gets old or loses flavor, they can add whatever flavor they want. Or they can even clean moldy weed, which destroys the flavor, and then add flavor back in through infusion or spraying. And the corporations would only need to grow one strain, which is a huge problem. You're monocropping. The incentives right here are we're just going to grow LCG forever. We're going to grow, millions of acres of LCG indoor or whatever it may be. And then we can add whatever flavor we want to it. Now, the big problem here too is really what's happened, right, is the streets have created this market, but it's going to be taken from them eventually, and it's going to be overtaken, and it's going to be taken by big corporations. Things like, big tobacco's already invested into cannabis heavily. And it's the path to corporate control. So small brands create the demand, right? The streets create the demand, but big corporations will buy them out or just, hijack it really. And cannabis becomes another mass-produced flavored product, just like all the rest of our industries in food, where everything is unhealthy, everything is bad for you, but they taste really good, right? Or it smells really, So we really have a problem in all these, especially in food, all these other things. But food really is the biggest one. Our food is so unhealthy. And it's because big tobacco implementing its own flavor engineering into each industry. And so the influence of big tobacco and the snack food giant, these industries have the expertise and capital to dominate the flavored cannabis space. And for example, there's already big alcohol, big tobacco, they're already investing into these terpene companies, right? That are gonna be worth a lot of money, and they already are pretty much worth a lot of money. Big corporations are also gonna have the lobbying power in the market. They're gonna be able to consolidate the market. These large companies are going to shape the regulations in their favor. They're going to deregulate, regulate, do whatever they need to do to push out the little guy, push out the small entrepreneur. And I started this whole channel. I started everything I'm doing right now to help educate the small up and coming entrepreneur, the person that's, from the streets, from the black market, And I want to educate, you know, I've always wanted to educate folks like that so that they can succeed, because everything right now is going against us, right? People like us, right? We are really not, we are not in their plans in the future. Even though we're the ones that built this market over, and, you know, we're the people that made those sacrifices, and thank you to all the people that sacrificed, you know, their life, their freedom, their everything, generations moving back, you know, to make cannabis legal. But like I said, this is an avenue where big corporations are going to use this as their entryway into, you know, taking over the cannabis industry. I truly do believe that. Now, let's get back into the threat of monocropping and the genetic diversity loss. So if flavored cannabis becomes the norm, well, there won't be as much of a need to breed and develop new flavors naturally, which is a huge problem. So why does genetic diversity matter? Well, different strains offers resilience against disease and pests. Single strain farming, right? That's what's going to happen when we have artificially flavored weed. It's going to reduce the demand for breeding new strains, and it's going to lead to just a bunch more monocrop. Monocropping in general is really, really bad. It's not sustainable. It's also going to be the loss of cannabis heritage and biodiversity. I mean, there's a lot of history tied into every single one of these strains and these people's stories, and that's something that we cover in the Retro Tech series. And so this is, like I said, there's a potential for the flavored cannabis era, the spray pack era, to completely wash away the history and the heritage, like I said, of the cannabis culture and its actual biodiversity. And so there definitely needs to be some transparency in labeling, right? Consumers should know if terpenes are natural, botanical, or synthetic. Now, like I said, this can get complicated, but it's important we do this.
Dispensary weed is already good, you know, all that. It's already fire. Good weed is weed. It's all good.
But sprayed weed is not in the dispensaries.
It's just the wave right now, so.
I mean, it might be expensive, though.
Really?
I ain't gonna lie, definitely spray weed in the dispensary. 100% spray weed in the dispensary.
Oh, which bring me there.
Oh, wait,
I'd say the brands
in
not
dispensaries?
I mean, I don't know the brands.
Bring me there.
The brands that claim not to be sprayed but probably are.
They're talking about this New York weed in the dispensary. There's Cali weed in them dispensaries. A lot of them brands.
Okay.
I love sprayed, by the way.
I love
sprayed.
Yep, sure do.
But yo, shout out to you, Matt.
Shout out to
he
Matthew. Matthew always
pulls
pulls up to get the spray.
But he only wants spray.
Spray, that's it. Don't show him anything else. He won't take it.
Spray generation.
Spray.
Spray, 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 spray.
Yo, this is the first time I've seen that. I ain't seen the Funko Pop.
Nah, yeah, somebody gifted me that too. I was at a weed event. I had to this is dope.
No, but they got
no. I thought it was the one that came with the actual weed in it.
Yeah, it does.
It's in the.
Shit. He did the glitch.
That's fire.
With that bag, it came with the bag and all that. Just like
What's the word, Bob? Everything good, man? But yeah, man, as you guys can see, you know, Gas Leak is definitely should be your first stop shop.
Yeah, but we started with the spray. We can't knock the spray.
You can definitely knock the spray.
You gotta,
Got you.
Yeah, that's what we came.
I got you. No, definitely I'm not gonna take it.
No, we came from the spray. Spray building us, sprinkled, we took over. This started all this shit.
You hear that, right? He says
it's truth though. It's a truth though. You're not lying though.
All of this shit.
Spray definitely started this whole wave. To be honest with you, sprinkles and spray definitely started this new mecca of wave that is out here right now.
So even like bro was saying, right? We can't forget about spray. Because like spray is what got me where I'm at. It's what got a lot of people where they at. Like I'm not against spray, but as we go on this journey of spray, we're gonna see the effects of it and how long it sticks around. You know, as we interviewed a few people, we saw we got people who love the shit, we got people who don't. But the real connoisseurs are gonna let you know what's good and what's not.
Oh, you brought everything from outside.
Now, some of the potential solutions for the industry, right, is we know flavored cannabis is here to stay at this point. I mean, like I said, I've traveled all over the country for this specific video, for this specific documentary, this story. I've talked to tons of people. I think I've talked to at least like 300 to 500 people on this topic. People from all over the industry, different sectors. And my takeaway from it, because I kind of have an interesting purview, an interesting view of all this, is that I think it's here to stay, honestly, because one, it's really big with the vape industry, right? With distillate, but I think two, it's an efficiency in the business that is already it's being used too widely now. So I think it's here to stay, but we need to promote responsible consumption and make sure that the potential drawbacks don't get out of control. So we definitely need to encourage natural breeding programs to reward the growers who develop flavorful strains naturally instead of relying on artificial additives. That's just what needs to happen, I think, for sure. And then we also need to establish flavor additive guidelines. We need to limit terpene concentrations to maintain authenticity and safety, because like I said, the concentration of terpenes is really at the heart of what could be potentially dangerous for consumers. We need to educate the consumer, right? We need to teach people to appreciate naturally flavored cannabis or just naturally grown cannabis. And we need to do that through tasting workshops and content. And I have some different workshops we're working on to educate customers and consumers on the difference between spray packs, terpene, enhanced flower, and naturally grown terpene flower.
Well, I feel like if the consumer's not being fooled and that's what they decide to do, like you said, we choose to make bad choices in food, giving our kids cereal and all this processed stuff. So, but knowing it, and leaving it up to the consumer, at least there's some integrity in that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But just not like all these companies that try to say it wasn't sprayed when they know it was. Because, we don't know what the damage is. It may be nothing. Could be something serious.
I mean, to me, it's already like people are already inhaling those terps with vapes.
Mm-hmm.
So vape's been around for a little while. I would assume it might give the same effect the fucking vape would.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe you not fucking up your lungs with smoke, fuck around, get popcorn lungs too, like a vape could give you. You know what I'm saying?
We're guinea pigs right now. We don't know what these long-term effects are going to be.
But what I'm gonna say, man, I do enjoy some spray brands. I'm not gonna say I'm against spray at all, because I'm not. But I'm against the brands that try to terp bullshit. Do not terp some bullshit and try to give it to me like it's some good weed, because that's gonna offend the fuck out of me. And that's gonna offend any real marijuana consumer.
You want good terps on good weed.
Yes, and I don't even want it heavily terped. If you're gonna terp it, it is already good flower. There's some flower that don't even need to get terped. And some niggas over terp it now, and now it don't even taste good. You just fucked up some good weed, bro. And sometimes that shit happens too. And then there's times when people over terp it to try to make up for the fact that it's bad.
Crappy weed.
Yeah. And I know the difference already. Nobody can run that game on me. That's why there's certain brands that is just like they yo, you owe me content. And I'm like, look, bro, here's the deposit back. That weed you gave me was dirt. I don't think you want me to embarrass your brand.
You don't want that content out.
Yeah, you don't want me to drop that content.
So, what's your guys' thoughts? After watching this piece, what do you think? Will cannabis become a hyper-commercialized? I think that's probably going to happen for sure, but is it going to be hyper-commercialized, and is the norm going to be artificially flavored product, just like junk food and tobacco? Or are we going to see a healthy, competitive industry that supports small businesses and that puts the health of the consumer at the forefront, not on the back burner? The future depends on regulation, consumer awareness, and the fight to preserve cannabis culture and crop diversity. And the actual data and studies on the effects of flavored cannabis are still lacking, so make your own conclusions based on the information you can find. Seriously, go out, research this. But I think, like I said, this is a massive crossroad that we're at in this industry. And if we don't take the right route, we could see some really, really bad things start to occur. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys like this video. This took almost 2 years to produce. So much time, so much effort. So thank you guys for the patience too. I really appreciate it. We're also, like I said, we're gonna be coming out with some different courses, some different workshops that, companies and, consumers are gonna be able to attend to help educate themselves on the the parameters and the healthy applications of botanical terpenes and the effects of terpenes. Because I think, like I said, that's something that's very under-researched. And really what it is, there's also a lot of terpene companies out there that, you know, they're not incentivized to necessarily talk negatively about, you know, adding on, you know, spraying terpenes or infusing terpenes, because it's their business model. So I think it's important. Like I said, I get it. You know, I'm not trying to fuck up their business, but this is potentially, like I said, a real health concern in the future. And really, like I said, it could really be distorted into something way worse. Because like they add flavor to cannabis, but what if they start adding nicotine or other things that are make you really addicted to cannabis, right? Because cannabis, for the most part, is not addictive, at least not physically. But what if this gets manipulated into that? There's a lot of what ifs, and there's a potential for, you know, a distortion, a really sick distortion of cannabis. So I think we got to take this very, very seriously. Anyways, guys, please, if you guys like this documentary, I spent a lot of time on this. It would really help if you guys like the video, comment down below, share this with somebody, please. That's the number one thing. Please share. Get the word out, educate folks on this, because like I said, there's a lot of spray packs out there. People are not aware what they're smoking, and this could very well be the future of the cannabis industry. Also, guys, make sure to join the newsletter. If you want to stay up to date on any, you know, industry trends, things like this, you know, spray epidemic, you want to keep up to date on, you know, all the new findings happening with that, we will have that in our weekly newsletter. You guys can go down below, click the first link in the description or the pinned comment, or you can go to www.lmc.news/newsletter and sign up. It's free, it's educational, and it'll keep you in the loop on everything. So make sure to go sign up. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everyone that helped participate in this documentary. This was, like I said, so many interviews, so many people that helped contribute to this. Thank you so much. Anyways, this is LMC signing out.